Welcome to Unit 9. Yay! Our last unit on multiplying and dividing fractions. So our first learning goal is I can multiply fractions. So we're going to cram all that right into one little video. So make sure that you have written down our learning goal on your note-taking sheet or not your journal page.
We're so used to that.
Note-taking sheet, I know. And we will go ahead and get started. So first we're going to think about multiplication that we're using to solve our problems. So this is just a simple multiplication sentence just to get you in that frame of mind. So highlighters come in sets of 6 and Lucy has 3 sets. So how many highlighters does she have? So that should be easy, right? 3 times 6 is 18. Yep. Lucy has 18. Well, we're going to use something similar, same type of words to help us understand multiplying fractions. So our next, I forgot we have a nice little visual. So we've got our sets of 6, and there's 3 of them, so she has 18. Now we've got Matt. He has a third of 1 set of highlighters. So we're taking that 1 set of 6, and he has 1/3 of that. So what you may not know is the word of actually means multiply. And that is going to be very, very important when we get here. So 1/3 of 6 means 1/3 times 6. And I'll bring up our little picture so you can see the 6 divided into thirds. And he has 1/3 of that, which would be 2. And now we're going to go into teaching you how to actually multiply those numbers out. So, yay.
Oh, this is me already.
That's you.
Yes. All right, so now we're just going to look at another picture and talk about how we can look at this and compare these two. So we have George baked 8 pies, and there's our nice visual. And then Molly, she only baked 2 pies that day. So one way, and this is probably the most common way that you can think about it, is...
Use the arrow. Oh, there you go. It worked. Sorry.
Oh. That George baked 4 times as many pies as Molly. Because as you can see here, Molly only baked 2. 2 times 4 equals 8. So, and they're even broken up into 4 different groups there. So that's one way to think about it. Now this way is similar, but it's just sort of flipped around. So another way that you can also think about it is Molly, she only baked 1/4 times as many pies as George. Because 1/4 times 8
and you could see that if we could move Molly's 2 pies up, they would cover 1/4 of his.
Yeah, the 1 out of the 4 groups that we have there. Exactly. So one thing that we just want you to think about then, this is sort of the process of multiplying fractions, is that 1/4 times 8 is equal to really, you're dividing 8 divided by 4 because we have these divided into 4 equal shares. So this is sort of thinking back to fractions in Unit 5, how we just did 8/4, and that fraction bar is like a division sign. So 8/4 or 8 divided by 4 equals 2 again.
And now we're going to go over how to do a couple for you to copy in your journal.
So we're going a little old school here. We're going to look on the whiteboard and just talk you through this. We thought this would be easier than looking at a slideshow. So sometimes you might think of, we have 1/5 of 25. And just like Mrs. Bush was saying earlier, this of really means like multiplying. So we can think about how really this is saying 1/5 times 25. Now, back in Unit 5, we learned how this whole number, we can make it into a fraction by just making your denominator 1. So that's our next step. Then, this is the beautiful part about multiplying fractions. All you have to do is multiply the numerator together. So 25 times 1 equals 25. And then we just have to multiply the denominators across as well. So 5 times 1 equals 5. Then, like we were saying before, this little fraction bar just means division again. So 25 divided by 5 equals 5. So just sort of going back from where we started, 1/5 of 25 equals 5.
Okay, so now you get a chance to try one on your own. So please write this one in your notebook, and Try and solve it and then come back to me and I will solve it for you. I'll do a little dance while you're waiting. Okay, so the first step, again, just like Mrs. Van Dam did, was I need to turn this into a multiplication problem. So 1/3 of 24 would be the same thing as 1/3 times 24. So that is my first step. Now, after I do that, I'm looking at this and I see that I have a whole number. So I am going to turn that into a fraction. And we talked about that, Mrs. Van Dam just talked about that. So I can turn my 24 into a fraction by just putting a 1 under it. Now, the beauty of multiplying fractions is it's so much easier than adding and subtracting them. You can just go straight across. You don't have to worry about finding common denominators and all that nonsense. So if I multiply across, I have 1 times 24, which is 24, and 3 times 1, which is 3. Now, this last step, if you look at the symbol right here, if you remember, that also means this, that means this, that means this. It means division. So 24 divided by 3 is equal to 8. So 1/3 of 24, if I took 24 and divided it into thirds, it would be 8. Okay, so now that you have seen 2, you get to try some all by yourself. So in your notebook, please answer the following 2 questions. 1/6 of 12 equals and 1/4 of 24 equals, or 1/4 times 24. So please write those down and solve them and be ready to talk about them tomorrow.